This story recollects what happened during the Navajo Nation fair season of 2015. My roommate and her boyfriend decided to head back to the res to take part in the festivities, rodeo, parade, and carnival. My roommate was the offspring of divorced parents and spent her teenage years half on the res in Window Rock, Arizona, with her mother and half with her father in Phoenix. She was raised a devout Catholic, even attending Catholic school. Nothing paranormal had ever occurred in her lifetime, up until this point. Her boyfriend was an urban Navajo who was a Christian, having been born and raised off the res in Phoenix, Arizona. I am declaring their religious ideologies and affiliations because neither of them believed in Navajo traditionalism or ghost stories. Late one evening, after both of them got off work, they decided to head out to make most of the 3-day fair weekend. My roommate had made prior accommodations with a good friend from high school. When my roommate was a young adult, her mother decided to move away from the res. If her mother still lived in Window Rock, she would have simply stayed there. The accommodations were as follows. Her good friend opted to stay at a close relative's and offered her 2-bedroom, 2-bath manufactured home, all at their disposal. The trailer was located off the road between St. Michael's and the first 4-way intersection. The first intersection past KTNN when you are headed south towards Window Rock from Summit. Many have called it the back road to St. Michael's. The old original township of St. Michael's, that is. As you can imagine, they arrived to their Navajo Fair B&B pretty late. The trailer was off to the right of the main highway and was situated at the foot of a large rolling hill. There was no streetlight. First order of business. My roommate calls her friends to let her know that they arrived safely. They walk up to the trailer and unlock the door and give themselves a tour of their accommodations. They turned on all lights in every room as they toured. My roommate had driven the entirety of the journey home, so she was a bit more fatigued than her partner. She asked him to go get the luggage from the car. They were driving a hatchback. The car was parked about 40 feet away. She explained to me that it had rained some weeks before, and the dirt road leading up to the house was wrecked. To avoid bottoming out, she parked on level ground. She walks into the guest room, and her boyfriend is already laid out on the bed. She pleads with him to go get the luggage, and most importantly, her makeup bag. So, that way she can remove her makeup before bed, and doesn't have to sleep with it on. She compromises with him that she'll go out with him if he does the heavy lifting. She doesn't want to put her heels back on, so she decides to watch him from the porch. Yes, heels. She worked at a bank and had always dressed professionally in a pantsuit and heels. So, she is standing on the top stairs of the small 3-stair porch with the front door slightly ajar, her hand on the doorknob. Her boyfriend walks off into the pitch black. The light from his phone serves as the only beacon of light, signaling his location. As she watches his light grow dimmer and smaller in the distance, she hears what seems to be a pack of dogs howling and barking. She said it sounded like a rumble, a pack of feral reservation dogs or coyotes fighting. The pack of dogs comes barreling down the large hill just behind the trailer. She hears a loud thud against the back wall of the trailer. The thud was so loud, she heard the rattling of the picture frames that were hanging. At this point, fear begins to creep into her mind. She calls out for her boyfriend, but hears no response. She shouts for him once again. That's when she realizes the dogs have all gone silent. All at once, in a fluid succession of motions, she said that something from inside the trailer slammed the front door, so fast that it created a gust of wind. She said that if she hadn't been holding onto the doorknob, it would have knocked her off the landing of the front steps. The front porch light flickered and goes dead. She is standing there, barefoot in the darkness. She tried to open the door and retreat back into the trailer. She was able to turn the doorknob until it clicked. The door wasn't locked. Something heavy was pressed up against the flimsy, manufactured, hollow core door from the inside. At this point, she said she didn't realize that she was crying and at the brink of an anxiety attack. Adrenaline took over, and she began throwing herself and all of her weight against the door. She said that once she saw it inch open, and the light from inside flooded the doorway for a split second before it slammed shut in retaliation. Fight or flight? She decides to run barefoot into the darkness to find her boyfriend. This is his account. He leaves his girlfriend at the top of the front door steps as he walks off into the dark, with only his phone serving as a flashlight. He is being very careful where he steps because the earth is turned and twisted and gnarled. Deep ruts and grooves form a vehicle driving in the mud before it hardens into a crust. He is afraid he might twist his ankle. He too hears the frenzied howls and barks of the dogs. He turns around to look at where the sounds are coming from. In the distance, he sees the faint light of the porch light go off. He rationalizes to himself that the dog's barking frightened his girlfriend, and in fear, she ran inside and unintentionally turned the porch light off. So, he continues walking in the direction of the car. He hears the thud of heavy footsteps behind him, mimicking his own stride. Not exactly in tune with his, following a split second after his own thud, almost echoing his own intentionally. Figuring it might be his frightened girlfriend running out to find him, he calls out to her, but to no avail. He sees a dim flicker in the distance, the light from his phone bouncing off the reflections of the taillights of the car. His body floods with relief. The relief, though, quickly drains to despair. His phone erratically dies. His heartbeat almost beats out of his chest. How could this be? He wasn't on his phone the entire time. It was fully charged. He takes a few urgent paces toward where the car was before the lights turned off. His palms are sweaty, and he swears he could feel his heartbeat pounding in his hands. Desperately, he reaches into his pockets for the car keys. He begins frantically pressing all the buttons, the lock, the unlock, panic, and open hatchback buttons. Nothing. He even stretches out his hand in the dark as he presses the buttons, thinking he is on the cusp of the electronic radius of the vehicle to respond. Still, nothing. The footsteps behind him hastened, and they almost sound like he is going to be charged from the back. He is too terrified to look back, and at this point, he realizes the dread he feels in the pit of his stomach. It means something is about to happen. Something unnatural. His shoulders drop, as if he instinctively braces for some sort of impact. The sound of the heavy footsteps would indicate that he should have been hit by now. Nothing. The footsteps loudly lead directly up to him, to his heels, and nothing. He opens his eyes. He hears something like a coin drop and hit the top of the car. He turns around to the patter of bare feet on the dirt road. His girlfriend charges into a full embrace, hugging him and burying her face into his chest. Mind you, his feet stay planted. He doesn't take one step forward or back. The car keys are still in his hand. His thumb presses down, a loud click, and the familiar sound of the hatchback automatically opening, and the light from inside the car quickly floods their immediate surroundings. They grab their luggage and the pair of flip-flops from the car and slowly make their way back to the trailer. Oddly, the front porch light is now on. My roommate makes her boyfriend go inside and check all the rooms before she goes back in. He opens the door with ease. He checks each room meticulously. There's no one inside. All the windows still locked from the inside. I have never retold this account to anybody, but I thought I would finally share before the time and life erases all details from my memory. Once in the safety of the trailer, her boyfriend pulled out the cell phone and it turned on to the same battery percentage. They corroborate their experience to recount what happened to each other. Both of them are dumbfounded at the fact that both of them were shouting at the top of their lungs for the other, one at a time, but neither of them said or heard the others yelling. Growing up on the res, you hear a fair share of skinwalker and ghost stories, but this was the first time I ever heard one where the perpetrator manipulated electronics to great extent, or even at all. It was also the first case where the perpetrator manipulated sound waves. Both of them swore that they were easily in earshot of each other, but weren't allowed to hear the other's cries. There were no structures or trees between them, obstructing any sound waves. He had heard the pack of dogs, but wasn't allowed to hear her screaming out for him. What also spurred me to share this was the massive amount of questioning. If they exist, why haven't they been filmed or caught on camera? Skinwalkers are just as modern as you and me. Wicked as much as they may be, they are not stupid and deal with smartphones and technological advances as much as anybody. They walk the world as normal people during the day.